The air is still cool in Alexandria, just brushing the edge of the Mediterranean morning. From your narrow clay house nestled beside the western edge of the city, you prepare as you do every day. A light linen robe, a modest breakfast, soaked, barley bread, and a handful of figs. No time for honey. You work in the library, after all, not just any library. The Library of Alexandria, to the outside world. It is a symbol of imperial curiosity, of Ptolemaic pride, of Greek scholarship, and Egyptian magic. But to you, it is simply work. You are a scroll keeper, a mid-tier position among the many workers in this vast temple of parchment and knowledge. As you walk through the outer courtyard, the columns rise ahead of you like solemn judges. The wind nudges your robe as you pass marble statues of philosophers, their chipped noses casting long shadows in the dawn light. You nod at one, an old favorite, Heraclitus, his stone face perpetually unreadable. You arrive before the public. Your key is bronze and heavy, meant to remind you of your responsibilities. Inside, the first task is always the dusting. Not metaphorical, actual dust. Hundreds upon hundreds of scrolls line the wooden cubbies or bibliotheca in long rows. Against the limestone walls, dust settles overnight. Always, you start with the Aristotelians, working your way to the Epicureans. No one ever dusts the Epicureans first. Tradition says it brings mold. Superstition, but old habits die hard. The parchment must be inspected as well, for warping, wormholes, ink blotches, and that horrible crinkle sound that means humidity. Crept in during the night. Today, the scrolls look good. Even the Thucydides section, which was a disaster during last week's rainfall, is holding its shape. You make a mental note to oil the wooden storage racks. Heat makes the joints swell. By the time the outer doors creak open, you've already cataloged 2 new donations. One from a trader recently back from Rhodes, and another, curious enough, from a Roman merchant. He calls it a revised version of Cato the Elder's De Agricultura, but you're fairly certain it's just plagiarized notes scribbled on Egyptian papyrus. They come in trickles at first. Some are scholars, stooped, mumbling men who never bathe enough and always demand more scrolls than they can read. Others are aristocrats, pretending to study philosophy while sneaking love notes to one another across the benches. Then come the students, the loudest, the least careful. You watch them like a hawk. The scrolls are not public property. They are state assets, and you're expected to ensure none go missing, none are damaged, and no one copies them without permission. This isn't a lending library. It's a repository of national knowledge, and some say of magical texts, military maps, and even documents smuggled from burned cities across the East. You supervise a reading bench today, not a young man. No, older than 18, requests Democritus. You fetch the scroll, handle it by the edges, and roll it out just enough to test its elasticity. A good scroll opens without cracking. This one opens fine. You offer it with a short nod and return to your seat, stylus in hand, to make another. Margin note on an incoming list of requested titles. You notice the smell: olive oil, dust, beeswax, and the faint scent of sea salt baked into the scrolls. It is strangely calming. Some mornings you forget where you are, only to be snapped back when a scribe drops an inkwell, or someone tears a scroll by accident. You wince at every rip. The librarians say you take the job too seriously. But what else is there to be serious about? Lunchtime is short. You step outside with a few others, crouch beneath the portico and eat cold lentils while staring at the harbor smoke rising in the distance. A merchant whispers something about a fire in the Jewish quarter. Someone else swears a scroll recently arrived describing unknown tribes south of Nubia. You chew slowly. You are a scroll keeper, not a translator, not a court reader. But sometimes, very rarely, the right scroll lands in your hands first. One nobody else has seen. That's when your fingers tremble a little. That afternoon, a delivery arrives, wrapped in cloth, stamped with a wax seal from the royal court. You are asked to carry it, alone, to the director's archive room. It is a long walk through the vaulted hallway where scholars once argued about Aristotle versus Zeno. You do not know what is inside, only that it is to be reviewed by the head of classification. You wonder if you'll get a peek. You wonder if it's the sealed bundle in your hands is heavier than expected. You carry it with both palms pressed against the linen, careful not to smudge the wax seal. It bears the crest of the royal Ptolemaic court, a serpent curled around a scepter, and that alone is enough to silence chatter as you pass the inner scriptorium hall. Normally, this section is filled with the gentle scratches of reed pens. Today, they pause. You walk past scroll copyists seated in pairs, facing long benches covered in inkpots and unrolled manuscripts. One scribes, the other checks. You don't speak. You don't need to. Everyone knows that bundles from the royal court do not come often, and they never come lightly. Finally, you reach the director's chamber, a domed room tucked beneath a marble arch engraved with a line from Homer. Even wisdom may sleep beneath the dust. You wait. The head of classification, an older man named Philin, appears behind the curtain. He peers at the seal, gives you a slow nod, and gestures for you to place it on a cedarwood table that smells faintly of resin and papyrus oil. He does not open it. Not yet. He asks you to log the delivery in the registry. You oblige. As you copy the entry in your neatest script, you notice that the scroll index beside his desk is open to a strange entry, the Architectura Occulta. It isn't part of the public catalog. You don't ask. You are a scroll keeper. Your job is preservation. Back to the workroom, returning to the main hall, feels like stepping back into a less interesting world. But it is still yours. You spend the next hours rewrapping scrolls that were unspooled too, far calibrating weights on the scroll hanging. Balance rack, scraping off wax residue from reused message tablets, copying updated shelf numbers for the Roman geography section. It may sound dull, but each act is a ritual. Each motion connects you to hundreds of keepers before you, and hopefully, hundreds more after you. The only excitement comes when a student attempts to leave with a tightly rolled scroll tucked under his tunic. You spot him from across the atrium. Your steps echo sharply across the stone as you intercept him. He freezes when he sees you. You don't shout. That would draw attention. Instead, you extend your hand and wait. Reluctantly, he produces the scroll, a Pythagorean treatise on music and mathematics. Valuable, yes, but not dangerous. You confiscate it. Note the boy's name, and let him go with a quiet warning. Scrolls belong to all, not to one. You don't report him. Not this time. Mid-afternoon, cataloging the forgotten there, is one chamber of the library few visit unless they must. The misfiled records vault. It's dark, slightly damp, and lined with scrolls whose origin labels fell off, burned away, or were never applied. These are the orphans of knowledge. Some are scraps of poetry, others may be duplicates. But a few are simply waiting to be recognized. You volunteer to sort a stack. You find a damaged scroll in early Demotic, possibly a merchant's log from the Delta, a roll of leather with strange slashes, possibly an early coded cipher, a fragment of what appears to be a Babylonian recipe book. You place each carefully into new parchment sheaths, label them with fresh ink, and re-enter them into the indicia, the master catalog. The act is slow, repetitive, and deeply calming. The words have become detached from time, and you are helping restore their place in the world. Occasionally, you imagine someone like you, 1,000 years from now, opening a scroll you recatalogued. Would they know your name? They wouldn't. That's not how the library works, but perhaps they'd sense the care. The stranger in the cloak, just before closing. A visitor arrives. Unusual. Visits taper off in the early evening. But this man wears a deep, dark red cloak and speaks with an accent you don't recognize. Not Greek, not Egyptian, not Ramong. Something else. He does not request a scroll. He asks a question. Do you still keep the scrolls with the heavenly? Maps? You hesitate. He produces a wax token bearing the seal of the royal astronomer. It's valid. You guide him silently toward the astronomy section. A vaulted room with ceiling murals of the constellations. Faded but beautiful. He examines 3 scrolls under your watchful eye. One he simply unrolls halfway and breathes on, as if testing something. You don't ask. He leaves quietly. And for the rest of the day, you wonder why a royal astronomer would ask about maps of the heavens on a day like today. Just as the Nile flood season begins, as the last rays of sun slip across the marble floor, you lock the scroll room doors. Bronze hinges creak faintly. You place the keys back into the cedar case. Your hands smell of ink and BESWAX. Another day, complete. You step outside. The air is warm now. Market stalls are being packed up. You hear laughter, music in the distance, a goat bleating near the temple of Isis. But in your mind, you still see that sealed scroll. The one from the royal court. What was in it? You may never know, but something in you wonders, is knowledge always for sharing? Or are some scrolls meant to be hidden forever? You arrive before dawn once more, but something is different. The city hums with tension. The air feels thick. There are more guards outside the Serapeum today. The temple librarianship where certain scrolls, especially sensitive ones, are kept under stricter watch. You hear whispers. There was a disturbance near the harbor last night. A skirmish between rival factions. Maybe political, maybe religious. You step into the main chamber. The scent hits you first. Smoke. Fire. No visible flames. No emergency. But the faint, lingering scent of something burned. You rush to the western wing. It's not damage, just smoldering wax, as if candles were left burning too long. Odd, but not dangerous. Still, it tightens your chest. The scrolls are safe. For now. Asterisk, the lecture that never happens today was meant to be special. A visiting scholar from Cyrene was scheduled to give a public reading on the ethics of classification. Something obscure but comforting, perfect for afternoon sleepiness. You had prepared the scrolls yourself, but he never arrives. In his place. A junior librarian steps up awkwardly, apologizes, and cancels the session. He was detained at the palace, she says, for further consultation. That's all. You remain in your seat, looking around at the now empty atrium. The benches are still set up. A pitcher of water sweats quietly beside a scroll of Herodotus. The silence deepens. You begin to wonder if the canceled lecture's connected to the delivery from 2 days ago. The scroll you never saw inside. The royal courier. The strange red-cloaked man asking about heavenly maps. You return to your duties, but it feels different now, like the library is holding its breath. Asterisk the index of forbidden works there is. A small, mostly unspoken tradition among the more experienced scroll keepers. When you've worked long enough, handled enough documents, you begin to notice something. Certain scrolls simply disappear from the catalog, not checked out, not damaged, not lost. They vanish. You first noticed it when the Egyptian agricultural text by Hekenacht was suddenly marked transferred. But to where? No record, no physical movement logged. Later, a treatise on dream interpretation by Artemides was reclassified. No one you know has seen it since. And today, as you're updating a bin of older medical writings, you notice something else. A gap in the scroll shelf that's been filled by fake scroll ends, decorative blanks. You peer behind them. Dust. Cobwebs. But no real scrolls. Someone is maintaining the illusion of a full archive. You sit back slowly. Closing time and the locked cabinet. Before leaving, you visit the rare items cabinet. This requires a different key, one kept in the archivist's inner chamber. You have permission to inspect and record wear and tear on sensitive items. You unlock it, revealing a bronze-bound scroll on ship design from Syracuse cylinder. Of wax stamped with Babylonian cuneiform, a jar containing what may be the oldest ink sample in Alexandria. But something else catches your eye. A scroll bound in black-dyed leather, very unlike the others. Not Greek, not Egyptian. And the script on the edge isn't one you recognize. You pull it out slightly. It's heavy. Too heavy for parchment. You tug just a little more, and beneath it, a slip of vellum in Greek, for director's eyes only. Astronomical calculations, revised, not for copy. You return the scroll, gently, as if it might detonate. You relock the cabinet. Twilight, you walk home through streets that smell of clay and warm ash. Someone is baking bread nearby. You pass a group of children chasing a chicken. A man plays a slow melody on a stringed instrument. The city, like the scrolls, feels eternal. And yet, you now know it isn't. Paper burns, memory fades. Libraries, no matter how grand, are only as strong as the peace that surrounds them. You think about that sealed scroll from the palace, about the scholar who never came, about the red-cloaked stranger who asked about the heavens. And as you close your eyes that night, you wonder. The journey of a letter begins. You are not a soldier, not a senator, not a poet. You are a tabularius, a Roman courier, a messenger of scrolls and tablets, a silent thread that holds the empire together. Your job is to carry words. And in empire that stretches from the green shores of Britannia to the scorched rocks of Syria, words matter. A missed message can mean a delayed tax shipment, a botched grain order, or even though you're not supposed to say it, a civil war. You begin your day in the Cursus Publicus, the state-run postal service depot just outside the walls of Capua. The morning light gleams off bronze fittings as you tighten the straps on your sandals. Your leather satchel is empty for now, but soon it will be heavy with wax tablets and papyrus scrolls bearing commands. Complaints and coins wrapped in rags for bribes along the way. There are no stamps, no printed addresses, only marks, codes, seals, and the oldest system in the world, memory. What mail looked like you entered the depot's archive room, where scrolls are stacked in clay tubes, each marked with tiny symbols scratched in red pigment, names, cities, abbreviations. Some are addressed to procurators, some to military commanders, others to tax collectors, estate owners, or temple keepers. You glance at your assigned bundle. It's tied in twine, sealed with wax pressed by a brass signet, the seal of a senator. Means it cannot be opened, not even glanced at. You'd lose your tongue, or worse, your thumbs for tampering with it. You slide the wax tablet into your pouch, alongside a smaller folded letter written in charcoal ink. This one has no seal, only a line scrawled on the edge. To Lucius, at the vineyard near the 4th-mile marker. No road name, no house number. But you know where that is, because that's the job. On the road you mount a tired but sturdy mule, not a glamorous creature, but trustworthy. Horses are reserved for military dispatches or imperial orders. For most civilian letters, mules and foot travel suffice. The roads are dry this season. No flooding in Campania, which is a blessing. You know the Milli area, the mile-marking stones, better than your own brother's face, each inscribed with distance from Rome, 1,000 steps per mile. You count them in your head, not out. Of need, but out of habit, dot along the way, you pass. A farmer leading pigs, a cart full of amphorae, heading to the market. A child selling olives under a fig tree no one notices you. You are invisible, but you carry messages that make empires move. At the first stop 2 hours later, you arrive at a mutatio, a relay station along the postal road. Here you rest, water the mule, and check your log against the stations. Wax board. You scratch your name in the tablet. Gaius delivered northbound batch number 7. You receive 2 new items to forward. One for Benevento, one for a soldier stationed near the Via Latina border fort. You also overhear something odd. Merchant arguing with the station clerk about a missing message, one that was expected 3 days ago. The clerk shrugs. Maybe it was intercepted. You look away. You're not paid to investigate, but it lingers. Mail security. Or lack thereof. There are ways to keep messages safe. Seals. Ciphers. Double scrolls, where the outer scroll is fake and the real message is hidden inside. But most people don't bother, because most people aren't sending state secrets. They're sending complaints about grain shipments, updates on sick relatives, reports of slave escapes, love, notes disguised as estate inventories. You once delivered a letter that said nothing, but my figs arrived too ripe. Send less sun. You didn't laugh. You carried it like it was Caesar's final will. That's the weight of words in this world. Evening and the decoy letter that night. You make camp in a small lodging house, shared with other travelers and a few chickens. You eat stale bread, sip watered wine, and tend to your mule's hoof. Before sleep, you check the seals again. They're intact, but the charcoal letter, the one with no seal, has a folded crease that wasn't there before. You unfold it again. Words are simple. Tell no one you saw this. Keep writing. It wasn't addressed to you, but now it's speaking to you. You stare into the oil lamp, wondering, is it safer to carry knowledge or to never read it at all? The map is not the message you ride at sunrise. The mule's hooves click against the cobbled stones of the Via Appia. the oldest and straightest road in all of Italy. A Roman road is no mere path. It is a tool engineered for armies, taxes, and yes, couriers like you. You pass under archways carved with fading Latin inscriptions. Beside the road, tombs of noblemen sit like silent milestones of history, each hoping to be remembered forever. But even they are beginning to crumble. Your satchel is heavier today. More tablets, more scrolls. The station clerk at Beneventum loaded you with a backlog of outgoing correspondence. You now carry words for senators, merchants, priests, and at least one secret mistress, if the perfume on that lavender-stained message is any clue. But the letter from yesterday, the one with the strange warning, still sits quietly in the pouch. You haven't opened it again. You haven't spoken about it. Yet somehow it feels like it's watching you. The road network that never slept, the cursus publicus, Rome's state mail system, is built like a second skeleton beneath the skin of the empire. Roads are measured by milestones. Messages are passed from mutatio, relay station, to mansio, overnight rest stop. Couriers are licensed and paid in denarii, though the amount often depends on the cargo's urgency and the patron's power. You know that there are 3 types of mail: publicus, official state documents; privatus, personal letters. Sometimes piggybacked unofficially occultus, letters not meant to be known at Aleuve, carried all 3. Only the third ever caused trouble. How messages were addressed today. You deliver one letter labeled, to Proculus, steward of the vineyard at the 9th milestone near the Temple Grove, in the shadow of the broken aqueduct. No names, no house numbers, no street signs, but you know exactly where that is. You've delivered there before. The steward wears one sandal mended with copper wire. His wife pretends not to read, though you've seen her lips move when her husband's back is turned. You knock. A boy opens the door and accepts the scroll with trembling hands. "Is it from my brother?" he asks. You smile and say, "It's sealed, but it came fast." That's all he needs to know. Hazards of the journey, the path beyond the next turn is rougher. A cart has overturned ahead, 2 oxen stubbornly chewing grass while their master curses in Greek. You help lift. A wheel, then navigate around through a trail marked by goat prints. These interruptions are common. The Roman roads are legendary, but only the main arteries are well maintained. On the lesser routes, especially those connecting villae rusticae, rural estates, the path is dust and hoofbeats. You check the messages again. 2 wax tablets for the grain magistrate, a scroll marked urgent from a vineyard owner. 1 unsealed slip that smells like wine and betrayal. Still, that 1 letter remains, the cryptic one, station rumors, and an empty saddle at the next mansio. The mood has changed. The stable master whispers about a missing courier, one who was supposed to arrive 2 days ago from the eastern provinces. His satchel arrived, but his mule came back alone. The satchel contained only 2 items, an unsealed note reading, "You are being watched." A half-burned wax tablet, illegible. You sit quietly. The letter in your pouch still says, "Tell no." When you saw this, keep riding. You haven't disobeyed. But suddenly, you wonder who wrote it, not the sender, but the real author. The one behind the ink. Messages that changed empires. You think back to what you've heard in taverns and camps. A single message delayed caused a rebellion in Gaul. A forged letter once led to the exile of an entire senatorial family. A scroll intercepted in Syria delayed the grain tax, causing riots in Rome. A personal note between lovers was read aloud in the Forum and revealed a scandal that ended a governorship. Words are not just words. They are power. And right now, you carry a message whose meaning you do not understand and whose destination isn't even listed. You lay down that night in a roadside shelter, staring at the dark beams above. You wonder, is it possible to carry something without knowing what it is, and still be responsible for its consequences? The letter with no destination. You rise before first light, the breath of your mule visible in the chill dot. Your route today is shorter. Only 20 miles to the final stop, the last Mancio on this run before you return to Capua. But your thoughts are long and tangled, like vines across a stone wall. The sealed letters, the wax tablets, all expected, all routine. But that single strange note, the one that now feels like it's humming in your satchel, still rests there, silent, heavy with something unread, but not unspoken. You've carried it over 120 miles dot, and still it has no recipient. The drop-off at midday, you arrive at the estate of Quintus Lollius, a retired magistrate and current olive oil magnate. You hand over a thick, formal scroll. The steward signs the wax log. You decline a meal. Too many letters left, and too much weighing on your mind. Just as you turn to leave, the steward says, "A man came here yesterday, asked if a courier had passed. Red cloak, no insignia." You pause, you thank him and ride away, but your hand instinctively presses the satchel closed. You've heard rumors about such men. They don't work for the cursus publicus. They work for ... someone else, a faction within the Senate, an intelligence branch of the Praetorian Guard, or perhaps just a rich man with secrets. The dead letter office you reach the final Mancio, a depot nestled under the shade of olive trees. The clerk here is elderly, half-blind, and known for his obsession with lost messages. He collects them, scrolls that were undeliverable, messages returned or never claimed. You ask softly, "Do you still keep the Sista Damnata?" He nods and leads you to a storage room. Inside, dozens of scrolls rest in clay jars, tied with brittle twine or still sealed with crumbling wax. Their messages forgotten, their intended readers either dead or missing. One reads, "To Titus, if you are still among the living." Another, "If this reaches you, it means we failed." You feel like a ghost among ghosts, and you realize your letter belongs here. No name, no address, no purpose you can fulfill. You gently place the message into the jar, tie it shut, and make an entry in the record. Unclaimed scroll. No destination. Hand unmarked. The return journey you ride home lighter, not in weight, but in burden. Back to Capua, back to the depot. You return your logbook, report your mileage, feed your mule. You decline the invitation to join. The clerk's for a dice game. Your mind is elsewhere. You lie in your cot that night, watching the shadows shift on the ceiling, and it occurs to you, perhaps the message wasn't meant to reach anyone. Perhaps it was meant to be carried, just carried, so that someone would feel its weight. And wonder, epilogue, the legacy of the letter years from now. Someone might open that jar in the lost message vault. They may read your handwriting. They may see that strange line. Tell no one you saw this. Keep writing. They will wonder, as you once did, whether you were part of a secret conspiracy or simply the most obedient courier in CAMPA and IA. and they will never know, because you never read the rest of the letter. You only carried it, like a true Roman messenger.